Country music sells itself on grit and heartbreak, promising listeners that every glittering rhinestone was polished by real sweat and sin. The genre's mythology celebrates outlaws, but fans rarely grasp how deeply that word cuts. Step behind the spotlight and you'll find police logs, grand jury transcripts, and frantic financial ledgers revealing crimes darker than any barroom ballad. Tonight, we walk a crooked mile with 21 legends whose misdemeanors became felonies, whose applause turned to arraignments, and whose album sleeves once hid arrest reports. Their stories are raw, unsettling, occasionally redemptive, and they prove the distance between a concert stage and a courthouse bench can be measured in a single broken string. Listen closely. Some of these names still headline greatest hits playlists, yet the tales behind the tunes may make your record needle jump. Spade Cooley opens our parade with a crime so brutal even Nashville hushed. Crowned king of Western swing, he filled ballrooms with champagne fiddle runs that made crowds spin till sunrise. Offstage, he brewed jealous fantasies about his wife, Ella May. On April 3, 1961, those suspicions turned homicidal. Cooley beat, kicked, and burned Ella May for hours, forcing their teenage daughter Teresa to watch. Doctors counted more than 70 wounds. A California jury needed 1 day to assign a life sentence. 8 years later, granted a furlough to play a law enforcement benefit, he collapsed backstage from a heart attack while the crowd still cheered. A finale equal parts applause and indictment. If Cooley's rage felt operatic, Johnny Paycheck's violence was barroom blunt. Famous for the blue-collar anthem, "Take this job and shove it," he lived the sentiment during a 1985 Ohio dispute about hunting dogs. Words turned to fists, fists to lead. Paycheck fired a .22 at a man's head. The victim survived, but Paycheck earned 7 years, serving less than 2 thanks to gubernatorial mercy. He walked free, cut a gospel record, and toured with an ankle monitor's ghost, following every encore. Billy Joe Shaver completed this unholy trinity in 2007 outside Papa Joe's Texas saloon. One shot tore through a stranger's cheek and neck. Holstering his pistol, Shaver drawled, "Where do you want it now?" A dare worthy of his legend. In court, he claimed self-defense. Jurors, swayed by tales of a knife, acquitted. 3 singers, 3 guns, 3 bodies bloodied or nearly so. Violence, jail time, courtroom gospel. Already the rhinestone veneer is cracking. But pistol smoke is only one flavor of scandal. The next verses involve forbidden love and crimes no 6-string apology can erase. Sin rides side saddle. Jerry Lee Lewis offers country's most infamous example of love gone legally sideways. In 1958, the killer arrived in London ready to pound pianos, but reporters discovered his new bride Myra was his 13-year-old cousin once removed. Venues canceled, radio yanked singles, customs officers threatened deportation. Lewis, 23 and cocky, snarled that the marriage was just a Southern thing. Careers usually die only once. His died that week and resurrected years later on stubborn ivory and hubris. Statutory disgrace also clung to Lefty Frizzle. At 19, he was already a Texas sensation, but 6 months in jail followed betting a 14-year-old fan. When he walked out, he wrote, "If you've got the money, I've got the time," an accidental confession that cash buys freedom more often than time buys innocence. Crowds forgave. History owns a shorter memory than court dockets. Claude King's collapse arrived 5 decades later. In 2011, the 90-year-old Wolverton mountain singer was arrested for aggravated incest involving a juvenile relative. The case melted in procedural confusion, yet the headline alone rewrote King's obituary. Domestic violence ran thick as blood. Ernest Tubb, drunk on ego and whiskey, stormed a Nashville hotel waving a revolver and demanding a critic face him. Bullets shattered plaster, not bones. Farron Young earned a reputation for alcohol-fueled assaults that left lovers bruised and bar owners filing restraining orders. Young's temper destroyed business partnerships. Promoters whispered booking him was like juggling lit dynamite. He once threatened a TV host on live air, then sent flowers the next morning, cycles that continued until depression deepened, and he offed himself in 1996, cursing both fame and loneliness. If love and violence couldn't sink a career, the Internal Revenue Service often could. Willie Nelson treated taxes like optional encores, skipping payments until auditors stacked a $16.7 million bill. Agents carted off his studio, his ranch, and a museum's worth of guitars. Undaunted, he released The IRS Tapes, Who'll Buy My Memories, sold it on late-night TV, and invited fans to bail him out cassette by cassette. Nelson laughed he'd turned the tax man into a merch manager, proof you can strum past foreclosure if the hooks are sweet enough. Conway Twitty's misadventure started with hamburgers, not hits. Hoping to franchise fame, he launched Twitty Burger under neon cowboy hats. The chain bled money, investors sued, and the IRS argued losses were personal, not professional. During the showdown, a lawyer quoted Twitty's lyrics as precedent. The judge chuckled and ruled in his favor. Twitty ducked the fry grease fiasco, but the episode proved even platinum can't guarantee profitable patties. George Jones spent so much time dodging tax collectors, friends joked his bus should be camouflage. Lines stacked higher than whiskey shots. Don Gibson faced similar reckoning when unpaid royalties drained his accounts, forcing him to bargain with collectors instead of producers. Both men learned, once interest compounds, even a gold record feels lighter than a single IRS envelope. Greed and mismanagement didn't leave bruises, yet they scarred reputations. Fans forgive a honky-tonk brawl, but bristle when heroes dodge the civic duty every truck stop customer shoulders. Money crimes cut straight to trust, and that uneasy taste carries us to the powder-white secrets that powered tour buses after midnight. Cocaine and cargo vans fueled the next wave. In August 1977, federal agents raided a Nashville studio after tracking a parcel of cocaine addressed to Waylon Jennings. Legend says his drummer stuffed the bag into his pants while paperwork errors stalled the search. Charges evaporated, but the scare inspired, "Don't you think this outlaw bit's done got out of hand?" A confession wrapped in a grin. Freddie Fender's addiction story began earlier and cost him harder. A 1960 marijuana bust earned 5 years in Angola prison. Governor Jimmy Davis, himself a country singer, offered a pardon if Fender stayed sober. The exile delayed before the next teardrop falls by a decade and left him convinced a few rolled leaves had robbed him of prime years. Merle Haggard entered San Quentin before he ever stepped onto the Opry stage. A restless teen, he racked up thefts and escapes until a botched burglary landed him in the yard where Johnny Cash performed. Haggard watched from the crowd, vowed reform, and served his stretch learning chords that later shaped Mama Tried. Governor Ronald Reagan eventually pardoned him, but his inmate number stayed tattooed on memory. For these men, white powder and iron bars formed a perverse apprenticeship. Experience carved authenticity into their voices. Every rasp a receipt for nights beneath fluorescent bulbs. Yet notoriety sold tickets, turning ruin into mythology. The next scandals show you need neither drugs nor bullets to soil a legend. Sometimes all it takes is a lawsuit from someone who knows every lyric you ever sang. Fame courts chaos and courtrooms echo. No weapon stings longer than paper served by a deputy at dawn. Porter Wagoner learned this when Dolly Parton left his show in 1974. Feeling abandoned, he sued for $3 million. Documents painted Porter as puppet master siphoning royalties. Dolly settled, then distilled the ordeal into "I Will Always Love You," a farewell that bankrolled them both, proving melody can sweeten litigation. Stonewall Jackson battled a glass ceiling when the Grand Ole Opry shuffled veterans into matinees. Feeling sidelined, he filed a $10 million age discrimination suit in 2007. Depositions revealed backstage politicking worthy of a congressional hearing. Jackson's willingness to sue the institution that minted him branded him fearless, some said reckless, enough to bite the glittering hand that fed him. Buck Owens sold Bakersfield twang as an antidote to polished Nashville strings, yet Seidman whispered his contracts read like iron shackles. He allegedly docked players for wrong notes and forced musicians to sign away publishing. Decades later, collaborators resurfaced with stories of empty envelopes, tarnishing the legacy of a man hailed as country's smiling virtuoso. These suits taught the industry that the scratch of a lawyer's pen can silence a Telecaster faster than feedback, power shields wrongdoing until whispers grow too loud. Gene Autry parlayed his singing cowboy fame into a broadcasting empire. Late in life, former employees accused systemic bias, claiming black artists received smaller checks and fewer spins. Autry never stood trial, but ledgers revealed patterns echoing Jim Crow more than Hollywood myth. Hank Snow sailed from Nova Scotia to Nashville, crafting travel anthems that made highways holy. Offstage, his son alleged years of physical abuse and financial manipulation, claims the courts never weighed, but backstage incident logs document broken guitars and bruised assistants. Statutes expired, yet the revelations cracked the polished marble of his Hall of Fame plaque. But not every crime unfolded in neon or courtrooms. Some brewed quietly in accounting offices and smoky publishing houses. Jim Reeves, velvet-voiced crooner, died in a 1964 plane crash, yet insiders whispered he manipulated contracts to freeze rivals off playlists. Lawsuits fizzled after his death, but draft depositions paint a man who could sing Mercy yet negotiate like a buzzsaw. Johnny Cash never faced felonies, but a 1965 arrest for smuggling amphetamines at the Mexican border proved even the man in black flirted with orange jumpsuits. A night in the El Paso jail spawned detox sweats, a church donation, and tales of redemption spun from humiliation. Evident celebrity leniency can rewrite a mugshot into marketing. Tex Ritter's catalog later revealed missing publishing splits rerouted to shell companies, and early Western swing contracts showed Bob Wills selling entire compositions for $50 and a case of beer. The cruelty of paperwork rarely makes headlines, but session players still hum those melodies while counting cents, and image control leaves its own scars. After bandmate Don Rich died, Buck Owens bought life rights and publishing to keep royalties centralized. Some call it brilliance, others call it opportunism etched on a friend's headstone. George Jones re-released older tracks with new overdubs to reclaim masters, legally savvy yet ethically murky for musicians erased from credits. Socio-political sins round out the ledger. During the Red Scare, Gary Cooper and Adolphe Menjou named suspected communists to preserve studio favor. Blacklisted writers vanished while Cooper collected Oscars, a reminder ideology can weaponize stardom. Legal lines blur further with Hank Snow's alleged beatings, detailed by crew journals noting bottle strikes and threats. None reached court, yet together they form a mosaic of terror hidden behind velvet vocals. Even tax tales wield nuance. Merle Haggard paid assessments on concert cash donated to prison outreach after the IRS rejected deduction receipts lacking inmate signatures. The strangest audit note in Bakersfield history. Across these tales runs a steel thread. Gatekeepers repeatedly weighed profit against morality and picked the cash. Spade Cooley was scheduled for a TV comeback the month he killed Ella May. Jerry Lee's marriage killed a UK tour, but Southern ballrooms booked him within a year. When Whalen stared down the DEA, his label planted a photographer outside for publicity. Audiences bear scrutiny too. True crime podcasts spike Cooley's streams. Algorithms don't ask about rap sheets. Outrage and curiosity share a billing address in the digital age. Forgiveness in country is sometimes tidy, a hymn, a charity check. Sometimes messy, like Farron Young's note-cursing stations he believed deserted him. Dolly bought peace with Porter. Willie found grace among drought-stricken farmers who didn't care about unfiled 1040s. These legends were human, which excuses nothing but warns against blind hero worship. Talent grants no ethical immunity. Before you label a star the GOAT, remember goats leave droppings behind every barn. Country music at its best turns pain into connection. These 21 stories reveal whose pain paid the cover charge. Dance if you must, but sweep the floor when the party ends. So what remains after the trials, the overdrafts, the funerals, and the forfeited gold discs? A catalog of songs strong enough to outlive every headline. Spade Cooley's fiddle still ignites swing nights. Willie's hemp-scented lullabies line grocery aisles bought with tapes repaying the taxman. Dolly's courtroom goodbye became shorthand for freedom. Waylon's near miss with the DEA pumped swagger into outlaw lore, while Haggard's prison tag turned into a badge of empathy. Art, like an old oak, can sprout from poisoned soil. Yet knowing the backstory changes every chord's shade. If history teaches anything, it's that talent and virtue seldom ride the same tour bus. Truth belongs in the liner notes. Next time a vintage croon floats from a diner jukebox, pause between sips of coffee. Remember, the hand that penned the lyric may also have signed a confession, and decide how loud you want to sing along. In the streaming century, the ghosts of earlier scandals haven't gone silent. They've learned to algorithmically recommend themselves. A listener who clicks Merle for the highway vibe may wake up inside a binge of prison documentaries, finding the 6-string and the 6x8 cell locked together forever. Spotify's discovery engine, proud of its predictive muscle, doesn't care if the back catalog is a confessional transcript. It only cares that the skip button stays untouched. Labels know this and quietly remaster archival tracks whenever a vintage mugshot circulates on social media. The spike in curiosity is treated like a national holiday on Music Row. Mix engineers called at midnight, vinyl reissues announced before breakfast, limited edition box sets shipped in black envelopes that vaguely evoke outlaw chic. It's consumerism wrapped in repentance wrapping paper, but people still tear it open, hungry for whatever contradictory flavor the past can serve with tomorrow's shipping number. Meanwhile, the songwriting rooms in Nashville's newer high-rises have turned cautionary tales into actual punchlines. Young co-writers sit in circles swapping chord progressions while joking that you haven't truly made it until TMZ knows your driver's license number. The line gets a laugh, but no one doubts the math. A mid-tier artist caught speeding at dawn enjoys a one-day bump in playlist placements. A headliner caught forging prescriptions lands a primetime TV documentary and a post-rehab comeback tour. Publicists track click-through conversions with the same granularity producers once saved for snare drum compression ratios. A tour bus fire, a cheating rumor, a leaked voicemail, all of it funnels into dashboards where managers ask whether the engagement graph justifies the emotional hazard. When every brand deck treats controversy as a growth KPI, the moral bystanders become accomplices, nodding along to a calculation they pretend is somebody else's. Fans, for their part, toggle between outrage and indulgence with the speed of a pedal steel gliss. They tweet denunciations at lunchtime, then queue up the exact outlaw playlist that evening because the chorus fits perfectly around an after-work bourbon. Feeds are full of righteous declarations. Never again will I support so-and-so, until that artist's heartbreak single pops up in a breakup-themed TikTok montage and the comments flood with nostalgia emojis. Cancel culture stumbles when melody rewinds childhood, or when a guitar solo times itself to the memory of a first kiss inside a rusted pickup. People debate splitting the art from the artist, yet most simply take a scissors to conscience and make room for the song. The industry, watching silently, files away those data points, confident that time plus a strong hook can deodorize almost anything. All of which leaves country music facing a folklore paradox. The genre claims authenticity as its North Star, but authenticity can't exist without the full ledger of sins and context. The old radio myth said you could convert mistakes into wisdom by boiling life down to 3 chords and the truth. The newer reality says you also need 3 legal waivers, a crisis management firm, and a cross-platform rollout strategy ready to monetize the healing process. Perhaps the next true outlaw won't be the singer who lights up a cigarette in a no-smoking bar. It will be the one who releases a brutal self-audit before the tabloids can publish it. Imagine a chart topper whose liner notes list every unpaid royalty, every ugly affidavit, every restraining order, and dares listeners to stream anyway. Would the public applaud the honesty or scroll past because the confession didn't come with a clickable preview chorus? That experiment hasn't happened yet, but the timeline keeps refreshing, and country music, never shy about gambling, may test the bet sooner than we think. Amen.